Okay, so this is the deeper part of D1, Defense 1, strategy. Okay, got infinite cooldowns, easy. Okay, so far I've covered Orissa's positioning, and the idea of this is to figure out where you're going to position yourself, not just so that you can get the most value, but also so that you can figure out where your team is and play in relation to them. So on defense, at least at the beginning, standing here is really good. Yes, it opens you up to a lot more damage, but the idea of you playing here is so that you can take aggro from the shield and also scout what their team composition is. So, you know, if you find that they have a Widow and a Hanzo, so hard. Or what might even be better is that if they do have something that's high damage and you can't stand here, jump off and then make your way here. And the reason I jumped off is so that they can't see if they're sniping from here, right? If you're standing over there, they can't see you. So the reason behind jumping off and then flying across is so that they don't entirely know what you've just done. Whereas if you go like, then they know that you've just flied to the other high ground because they could see your trajectory. And here, this is also extremely helpful because you've got your Orissa underneath. So she can contest the bridge, she can contest here, and she's got this balcony to shield her. And your aim is to sort of help shut this down, but also just provide like a split level that their main tanks have to put effort into. Also shutting down this particular zone is really helpful. But again, if you get shut down in that position, you can always retreat to here, and that way, even if they do claim this sort of space, you can still look out for this flank, look out for this flank, and you can figure out every which way that the enemy team's going. Which is what you want to do as D.Va. You know, you want to be able to put in frontline damage and all that sort of stuff, but then you also want to be able to, you know, shut down any flankers, defense matrix, tracer, pulse bomb, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, so moving on, the next stage of the defense, I guess, is sorry, I just really needed to do that. The next stage of the defense is this particular spot. You want to have this high ground. Junkrat's going to be here. If they get to around here, the reason that Junkrat's going to be here is so that he can shoot this wall, get ricochet damage, blah blah blah, and he creates like a sort of line or like an axis that they're going to have to get damaged if they cross it. And the reason for you being here, again, is that you're splitting up their attention so that you've got your Orissa, you've got your squishies, and then you've probably got Hanzo and Junkrat here. And the perk of that is that you standing here can shut down this high ground. If they've got a Widow that uses her grapple to fly up, then... Okay, so here's a scenario, right? Say if their Widow's here and they've just been progressing a little bit and she grapples up to here. What do you do as D.Va? She's standing there. Like, what I would do is probably not this, because that knocks her into her team. And this is probably also a tip for Reinhardt charges. If you do a flank shatter or something like that, you don't want to charge someone just in any direction. You want to charge them into your team, because that repositions you in a good way, and it unpositions them, if that is a word, takes them out of position, right? Even if you don't kill them because of a Zarya bubble or something like that, it still works. And so the theory behind that with D.Va is that if you go, then you're taking the fight inside, which is a place that you want to prioritize, right? Because that way your Junkrat can also do his thing where he can just turn around and just blah 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 blah. And that works out particularly well. Okay, so you've still got this flank to shut down. You know, if you're here, another perk of this is that you can shut down this flank. And you want to be here for as much as possible. If it becomes dangerous, leaning towards thinking maybe going here, but that's very open, right? So maybe you'd want to be in here. I would still say high ground, because then you can just the only downside to which is that you need to sort of use your mobility to either get to a health pack, in which case you're a sitting duck for 5 seconds, or you need to use your mobility to regroup with your team, or you need to, you know, you need to use your mobility if you're there. So preferably like that. And that's if you're on the retreat. There's also the sort of idea that you could be here doing your thing, but if they've got a Zarya, standing here isn't really going to do much, because she's going to get right clicks off onto you when you're behind these boxes, and you're going to get splash damage, or if she's facing you and she's shooting you, then you're going to get mowed down and you're just going to be feeding. So you want to be in a place, say if the payload's there, you want to be in a place where you can get damage on people, but their Zarya, specifically Zarya, can't get damage off on you, and that's really good. If they have a Roadhog or something, because they're running like Orisa Roadhog, which is sort of popular, then again, you know, you want to be outside of his radius, his hook radius. When you're defending and the payload's progressed a bit further, you want to be here. And the good thing about that is you can shut down this high ground entirely. You can keep a view of this entire space, and if you get aggroed or damaged, then you can come here. Also, if someone says, you know, there's a Genji flanking on the canal. This is canal, because canal. Yeah. So that's really good. Okay, moving along to this next part. As Orisa, you're going to be here. You're going to have your Zen here, and you might want to be here. But this is not the greatest position, because even though you will provide some level of protection for your team, you want to be here, because you can still get to them, shield them, you know, put missiles off on a tracer, that sort of thing. But you'd probably want to be here at this point. You want to be providing some body block for your Zen, who'll be here. You want to provide some mobility so that you can get to your Junkrat or Hanzo, whichever one is going to be here. I'd probably say both, because the two of them work fairly well together in terms of disarming flankers if they've got like a Genji or a Tracer in this building. Don't know what to call this room. We'll figure it out in scrims. Let's call it the Opera House. Or just house. Yeah, house is good. Okay, so you'll want to be providing as much damage to their shield as possible at this point. So you want to be in like close to mid-range. Also, being here, you're at the perfect mid-ground of providing enough offensive utility, enough defensive utility to whoever is sniping and whatnot, and you're at that perfect sort of mid-ground. Anyway, pushing back to this next point, your Orisa is going to have a shield here. You're going to have someone here, maybe here and here. You want to have the high grounds sussed out. And as D.Va, you'd probably want to be here as well. The reason for this is that while you can't see the ground floor of house, you can see who's coming out of ground floor, and you can probably hear who's coming out of ground floor as well. At the same time, you can draw aggro from snipers and all that sort of stuff. You can provide healing and line of sight for your Mercy and Zen, which is good for Mercy especially because she can get some high ground off you. And this is a particularly strong position, just being able to divide up their main tank's attention so that you're getting an angle on top of them and shooting their backline. Their backline's probably going to be around here, but the more you're constricting them, the better. If they decide to do something a bit divey, you can just zap, move them away, that sort of thing. Say they've progressed a bit more, and your team has Orisa shield here. You'll want to be right here. The reason for this is that while you have had to give up that space because this is in their possession now, they've claimed it, let's say, you still want to have this flank shut down. This flank for them isn't really a flank. This is just them re-entering main, and re-entering mid. So that's not particularly, you know, like flanky, let's say. Whereas this door is bad. If you're on defense, this door is really bad because a lot of the time people don't look up. Say if you've got your main tank here and she's doing main tank things like, you know, shooting Reinhardt shield, this area is not even in her field of vision. So what you want to do is take this spot so that you can, again, shoot over the Ryan shield, provide damage, all that sort of stuff, and you still have a natural retreat to your teammates and out of enemy line of sight, but you're still maintaining this high ground so that this floor is essentially shut down. Or at least if there is someone, then you can sort of shoot at them, tickle them, deter them from coming your way. If they are super aggressive and that sort of stuff, you can just say, oh, I need help, all that sort of stuff, and then, you know, your Junkrat or your Hanzo can come up and blah blah blah. I'd probably say Junkrat come up, and the only reason I say that is because he is really good at shooting across and down, and I think maybe Junkrat should stand here to begin with because he can get those nice ricochet shots, still shut this down by shooting at this wall, hitting their backline, or shooting at this wall and hitting their backline. When the time comes, I guess, for him, Junkrat, breaking shields is going to be necessary, but for this point, you know, it's not entirely needed. It's a lot more effective if you can break up their team comp so that their tank is stuck here, and then their squishies will have to retreat into this space, in which case he might be able to still shoot them. I'll test that in the Junkrat video. But yeah, so you'll want to be utilizing this space, and then obviously the more they sort of progress along here, you'll want to claim this space as much as possible. And the reason you want to claim this space as much as possible is because at some point, inevitably, they're going to put their Hanzo on the high ground or something like that. And you want to be in a place where you can contest their main, you can contest their flanks, and you can defend your squishies if necessary, right? Or if you've got your squishies over here, and you're over here defending this high ground and still putting pressure on, then you can fly over and help. Okay, so let's say they are fighting here, or they've just capped here, the payload's here. Is this a good spot? I would say so. You know, you're shooting over the shield. If they have a flanker that walks in here, you can see it pretty damn easily, and you don't have to use your mobility from here to get across. You can literally just walk up. Yes, they have a mini, and that's their possession, because, you know, it's closer to them, whereas you have to jump down and submit yourself to them if you want to get that health pack, which is not so good. But then you'd want to, yeah, you can contest this space for them. At the same time as, you know, if you're shooting someone here and a squishy says, oh, I'm getting targeted, then you can go and rejoin, right? But you definitely want to keep this high ground. You'll probably have a DPS here as well. If the payload is around here, you probably want your Junkrat to be here, and that's particularly helpful because Junkrat can shoot. Again, Junkrat, whoever's going to be playing Junkrat, I cannot stress how useful these ricochet shots are. And then as Junkrat, you can still shut down this space, retreat to this mini, or if they've got really bad lines of sight or really good lines of sight on you, then you can retreat through here and then sort of make your way around to this mini, right? Okay, and so say they've progressed a bit far and they're coming up along here. As D.Va, where do you want to be? I would say probably here. The reason for which you can shut down any potential flanks that are going on here. You can quickly get to their Widow if they have one and they're putting themselves out of position, because a lot of the time a Widow will have to use her grappling hook to get here. So you knocking her off is taking her positioning away from her, at least for the next, 8 seconds? Yeah. And so then you're able to be aggressive to their 1, 2, 3, 4 opportunities of entry. Well, 5 as well. But this is a bit harder, purely because if you need to use your mobility to get here, you're a sitting duck and you just cross the road, which isn't that helpful, across the lane. Okay, so you're gonna, on defense, we're gonna have our Junkrat in here. Like, these arcades are really, really helpful for him. Because it's dark, he can put his trap here and it's harder to see. And that is really, really invaluable. Also, because there's lots of ricochet opportunities, you know, bang, 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 you know, it's like a pinball machine. You want it to be as close and confined for Junkrat as possible. And consolidating this zone, this arcades area, is really, really helpful for your team. Not just for Junkrat to get good positioning so that he can get, you know, good tires off and that sort of thing, but, you know, if he's shooting from here, that's really good. And you're going to have your Orisa shield here, you know, sort of forming a line like this, so that she can defend against main, these two, this one, and maybe this one as well, depending on how far the shield goes. But you being, I would say here, is that helpful? I would say so. Again, this is sort of the part where it depends on where the enemies are, and you as the defensive and offensive person will have to figure out, you know, do I need to be here to shut down flanks? Do I need to be up here to shut down Widow? Do I need to fly back here to protect, you know, my squishies or my, what's his name? Junkrat. That sort of thing. And so, say they push forward, you know, next step, they push forward a little bit, you've got your Orisa shield here. You want to be in this spot because you want to contest arcades. At the same time, the perk of you being standing here in main is that you don't have that bad a range, you know, up until this line your range is good. Whereas if they're at that mini or a bit further back, then you're just doing really shit damage to them because you've got such a big spray, as you can see. Okay. You want to be able to shut down this space if they've got a flank that goes in, huzzah, and that sort of thing, and then you can quickly regain with your team anyway. You want to be helping your left flank and your shield as much as possible. And in worst case scenario, if you've got like a soldier or Hanzo, whichever one is working at the time, here doing their thing, then you want to, as D.Va, be able to get to them, help them. Say if there is a Tracer that's just flitted her way across and she's coming in here, your Hanzo or soldier is going to be facing this way and they're going to slowly be walking out and shooting her at the same time. You as D.Va can do like a pincer. So she's trapped in this room essentially, even though she has recall, so she has a get out of jail free card, but you being here, shooting from this side, and Hanzo being here, shooting from this side, will be enough to make her use recall, so that's really good. And then, yeah, you'll be able to sort of help on all three fronts, you know, this side, and this side. Or depending on, you know, Hanzo might be in this sort of space, because he needs to have a bit more long range, but he probably also wants to help shield break and that sort of thing. So Hanzo might be here. We just don't want to give away blue for free. And then here, it's very much the same story. You want to help your Junkrat, he's doing something and he's getting shut down or something like that. Although, at this point, the only thing that's useful, or the thing that is most useful for D.Va is to clear people off point. Oh, it's actually not a bad one. But you know, if you want to clear people off point, if it's like overtime and you want them to get off the payload, you know, you do the fly up and then ult thing. But otherwise, a Brigitte might be helpful. So it might be a lot more prudent to swap to Brigitte. So that way you can, you know, provide burst heals to people at any range. Important, any range. You know, press E, that sort of thing. You can shield. I'm right clicking, it's defense matrix, but you can shield. You can shield bash anyone that decides to, you know, poke their way. If I'm an attacker and I decide to poke my way through, you can shield bash them. they get stunned here. And so I think that might be the best way to go. Again, it depends on what comp they're running. If they're running like a... I would say if they're running a Zarya, then swapping to a Brigitte might be helpful. Brigitte and D.Va are both sort of countered by Zarya, but then defense matrix against Zarya, it's sort of the payoff. Like, you can do the maths equation for yourself and just sort of feel out which one's better at the time. But either of those two choices would probably be good. But yeah, that's